Welcome back to Housewarming, your inside look at real Irish homes transforming for a greener energy future. I'm Kim Buckley, and this week we're chatting to Ryan Baird, Leinster and Ireland rugby star, and Kieran McCarthy, who you'll recognise from the telly and radio. Ryan Baird has recently bought a home by the sea in Blackrock and is just about to start a big renovation project. He's been learning along the way at how best to take advantage of the grants from SEAI and other benefits of doing an energy upgrade. He wants a house where he can cook and entertain, but also switch off and take a break from his busy training schedule. Ryan is at the very beginning of his project, but my other guest, Kieran McCarthy, knows quite a bit more. He's a building engineer and director of KMC Homes, and as well as renovating his own home, he provides expert advice on TV, in the Irish Examiner, and as a regular on RTE Radio 1. But before we get to the expert advice, let's hear from Ryan and his vision for a calm, warm, inviting home by the sea. So tell us a bit about yourself.
I am a professional rugby player. I play with Leinster and Ireland whenever selected. You can actually never say you play for Ireland because each campaign you get selected. And I kind of grew up in Rathgar, and then I've moved over to Booterstown now, which we'll be talking about. And I travelled a lot as well. I've done a bit of solo travelling. I've made an effort each summer to try go abroad somewhere. I guess I'm just trying to broaden my spectrum on what I can see in my life, because you see so much online and you hear about how people live so differently. And as much as I love Dublin here, and there's such great parts about being here, I don't want it to fool me into staying here and accepting that this is the only way. I want to go out and see what else is there, and make up my own kind of my own way of how I'd like to live. So
okay, but you have set down roots here. You've bought a new house.
Yeah, and I guess that's as a result of my career, in that I have some level of security in where I'm going to be playing for the foreseeable.
So you're from Rathgar. You've bought a house in Booterstown. You haven't gone far. Tell us about why Booterstown and what was the house hunt like?
Why Booterstown? Quite simply, something about the water kind of attracts me to it. I don't know, I get great perspective in nature. I went up for a hike with my girlfriend up the Hellfire Club. Sorry, hike. We parked in the car park, walked 20 minutes up to the top. I did have my hiking boots on.
Did you have sticks?
No, I had no sticks, but
okay.
We had we'd baguettes in our bags. So
wow.
we had lunch under the trees, but even there, under the trees, and it's going to sound quite hippie and all that, but it was pissing rain and there was no water coming down because the trees were just protecting you from the rain. And when I was on holiday in Portugal, the trees were protecting us from the heat, and it was beautiful. So whenever I'm in those kind of environments, I just get such an appreciation for...
You're at one with nature.
Yeah, well, at times.
So you wanted to move close to the water. Are you a sea swimmer?
Sometimes. I just even I love looking at it. I remember one day I was really stressed, and I just got on my bike and I cycled down to Booterstown or even Blackrock and sat there and just stared at the water for a little bit. And I don't know, they say there's two things humans can stare at forever, and it's fire and water.
That's so true.
Running water and fire, because it's each moment is it's unique. There's no moment there's no wave like the next one. There's no flame like the next one. So it always draws your attention. So, in a long-winded way, that's why I moved to Booterstown.
Okay, and tell us about the house hunt and why that house, and what type of house is it? Tell us about the house as well.
Okay, here we go. So for the first year, I kind of dibbled and dabbled on Daft and my home. I was quite lazy about it, and my mom was like, "You're gonna go nowhere if this is your kind of attitude." So I'm going to admit I actually hired someone to find my house for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What is that? What are they called?
So everyone knows what a seller's agent is, like your Sherry Fitzgerald's. They sell the house for you. I got what's called a buyer's agent.
Stunning.
Her name's Liz O'Kane.
Shout out Liz.
Yeah, shout out Liz. She's also on the telly, so she doesn't need this.
Okay.
She does a program on Virgin about actually literally buying homes.
Okay.
And she was brilliant. So I gave her my budget and what I'd like, and she went out and we had a look, and she kind of said, Ryan, for the budget you want and the type of house, I wanted to move into a home straight away. She was like, you're not going to be able to match that budget to that. So then initially I actually said no to my current house. And she was like, would you go back and have another look at this? It's a lovely house. It is going to need a little bit of work, but it's on the price, underneath the price that you were kind of figuring for. And I went there. It was just so quiet outside the house. Like it's off the N11, so
easy to get to
work. But even at that, like, you're 5 minutes from like incredible traffic and noise, but yet you're in there and it's just incredibly peaceful. So that was probably one of the main things that drew me there. And I've always lived on a street, not in an estate. So part of me wanted to live in an estate, a little bit more quiet. Maybe if I had kids or something, that, you know, that's somewhere they could grow up. If that was to be where I stayed, I don't know where I'll stay, but it just gave me that kind of nice homely feel. And when I walked into the house, I don't know, I just saw some really good potential. It's funny, my mom was livid at me that I never actually showed her the house before I bought it.
Oh, stop.
I had my dad over there with me a couple of times. I had a builder over there. I had an architect over there.
And you didn't bring your mom?
And I didn't bring my mom. And I never even realised it until I bought the house. And she was like, you know, I've never seen your house. And I was like, oh my God.
Big mistake.
Yeah, she walked in, and the first thing she was like, yeah, nice. Nice.
High pitched yes, that's not good.
because I hadn't sold her the dream yet on what I was going to do to the house.
Yeah.
So now she's so excited. She can see exactly what I'm going to do. I have the drawings. I'm working on it now, and
you're living there at the moment. Sell us the dream. Tell us what you're going to do.
Oh, okay. I'll use a lot of adjectives. I always do. I get killed for it when I do it. But so currently it's kitchen at the front, living room, dining room at the back.
3 bed
upstairs. Semi-D, little side terrace that gets me into my back garden. Back garden's probably 10 metres long, 5 metres wide. Perfect for your kind of like outdoor veranda, you know, smoker, barbecue, sauna setup.
Outdoor kitchen.
Plunge
pool.
If I want mental torture, I might get a plunge pool, but probably not.
Okay.
But there's a lovely sun trap down the back right, so that's where all the relaxation cooking utilities, they'll all be down there. But what I love most about it is currently I'm in the kitchen by myself and my mates are in the living room, and I have to keep popping my head out the door to say hello and talk to them. So I'm going to knock down the wall. The house is north facing, so the easterly wall is tiny window on it, but during the day it gets battered with sun, particularly evening going onwards. So I'm actually going to create this huge, like 1.8 by 1.5 kind of rectangle, and just let all the sun fill into the house.
Gorgeous. I
have an idea as well of putting this beautiful kind of sunroof that comes down the hall. So I just want to project as much light into the house as possible. I then also was reading a book on biophilic design, which is basically about bringing nature into the home. So one of the first things I did was I went and bought 3 plants and put them in the home. I don't look after them enough.
Start as you mean to continue.
Exactly, yeah. But like, even when I'm on Pinterest, I'm looking at all these kitchens and I'm like, why do I love that kitchen? I'm like, because it has lovely green plants in it and stuff. So it's going to be a home that you walk into and you can immediately just go, oh, yes. There's going to be spaces to sit down and, you know, just chat with your friends. I'm going to get a lovely wood burning stove, so there'll be a lovely cup of tea around there. There's going to be a TV in the corner. I'm actually not much of a TV watcher, but you know, when it's time to have, you know, that relaxing, you know, watching Netflix or a bit of sport, I'm going to have a lovely kind of real deep, long L couch. I'm quite tall, my legs are long, so I'm going to get this huge couch with it kind of kicks out on one side. Lovely rug on kind of where the TV is going to be. Oh,
you've really gone into it.
Yeah, and then kind of kitchen is where I live, is my love, to be honest. Like cooking for me is everything. So
I suppose, like, you're so busy, you're training, you're traveling, you're playing sport, you're away months at a time. You want to come home and really relax. You want to take your shoes and socks off and be in your own little sanctuary, and I can totally hear from the passion in your voice that is what you're going to create. But in terms of energy and sustainability, because obviously it's not very energy efficient at the moment, what is the BER?
BER at the moment is a D1, and
it's not too bad.
I don't know. It's very cold.
Well, it's not ideal, but it's not a bad starting point.
No, it's not. It's not like I saw houses that were like E's and F's, and yeah. So they're actually, you're right. You know, it's cold, but I don't have to knock the house down. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can do work on it, which we'll get onto. But
yeah. So along with your renovation, you are going to make the house energy efficient. And where did you start then, and who did you contact in terms of doing all these energy upgrades?
Well, a builder had looking at it with me was saying you could do X, Y, and Z, and then my physio in Leinster, Gareth.
Shout out, Gareth.
I'm going to send him this, and he was like, what about the grants? And I was like, what grants? And he's like, you know, you can get like thousands and thousands off windows, heat pump, instant insulation. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, this is just brilliant. So I had no clue. I was about to pay my builder just to do it himself, and he was like, well, check if your builder is SEAI approved. Fortunately, he wasn't. So then one of my teammates has a relationship with Oak Energy, so who are a one-stop shop provider. Well, firstly, I went on to the SEAI website after that, and actually there was 2 brilliant PDFs on it. I was only looking at them today, actually. One was the one-stop shop PDF, and it showed you, what you had to spend and get your median savings and kind of what was covered underneath it. And then it showed the kind of the individual grants, which are more for kind of like people who want to take on the projects more bit themselves. So I looked into both, and I realised that the one-stop shop was the best one because it allowed me to also get my windows done, and potentially my heat pump, which I couldn't have got on I think it was just the windows I couldn't have got on the single one. So
yeah. God, you really did your research.
Well, yeah. But then the thing I only realised as well is you get a project manager on the one-stop shop. Yeah. And again, that's worth thousands in itself, but it's worth time as well. Like,
you're a busy guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I suppose if you want to sell the house later on, the value of the house is going to go up, like, because it's going to be what B or do you hope to get to?
Well, I got told the Ep3, but the minimum's the B2.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm happy to get it up to into that range. That means I'm not having to spend as much money on my bills, and I'm also not using as much gas, because currently it's a gas boiler, which is going to be removed for a heat pump.
Yep.
Which obviously relies on electricity, which can be more renewable if it's obviously from wind farms and stuff.
What about solar panels?
So I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
2 parts of the roof that could work. I just need to see if it's okay getting solar panels on the roofs, because I don't want to be that person who sticks out like a sore thumb, which every other house is.
But you could be an inspiration to the others.
See, that's the thing as well.
And they might follow your lead.
I know. I could, I would like to, because that means I would be saving even more money. So
what are you putting in then in terms of energy efficiency? You're insulating, heat pump, new windows and doors.
So I am internally and externally insulating parts of the home. Just depends on parts of the home. I'm then going to do my windows. My windows at the moment, they're traditional, like kind of double glazed, air filled from back in the 90s. And that means they're cold. The new ones are double or triple glazed with argon glass in between, which I hear is much better for keeping the heat in. So they'll be the first things that's going to be changed. My guy from Munster Joinery is coming out on Wednesday morning to have a look at me with those. Then one of the main things that's going to be the huge energy saver is the heat pump. So the heat pump versus the boilers. The boiler will turn on and the radiators will pump out at like 40, 50, 60 degrees. For a couple of hours they'll turn off, and then the residual heat will just remain in the house. The thing about the heat pump is it just stays at about 21 degrees the whole time, is what I've been told, and you shouldn't really need to change it. So you should always walk into your home in t-shirt weather. It shouldn't be the case, I'm freezing, let me put the heat on. It should be the room is always at the same temperature. And obviously to heat something up to 20 degrees requires a lot less energy than to heat something up to 40 or 60 degrees, because you're obviously going further away from what is the outside temperature. So that's going to be a huge energy saver.
Plants are going to love it.
Yeah, they like t-shirt weather.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
You just have to keep watering them.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I was looking at it the other day. I felt bad for him. And then attic's going to get insulated, and then the radiators are going to get changed to some better radiators.
And that's going to take the home up to hopefully an A3.
It says A3, but that's without solar. So the solars might go up to an A2.
Yeah.
But
so in terms of like interiors and, you know, where will your favourite spot in the home be? You're going to have a morning coffee. Where are you sitting and having it?
I do hate to break it to you that...
You don't drink coffee?
Well, see, I didn't drink coffee until I met my girlfriend, and she loves coffee, and we go for coffee all the time, and I actually love going for coffee. I don't necessarily like drinking it.
Okay, so tea then, where are you going to have your tea?
No, but I do. I'm now transitioning into coffee. Only if it's good stuff, though.
Okay.
I'm not spending thousands on a machine just yet.
Right.
I don't really do much of the morning stuff. I'm up and I'm gone. However, the afternoon for me, I've kind of envisioned two places. You know, one of them is that kind of like towards the back of the house where the fireplace is. I'm envisioning kind of like two chairs and that large couch, and I'm hoping that when I get home, my friend will be home, my brother will be home. We just sit down, we just, you know, chat away. And the other place is that sun trap I was talking about at the back of the garden. I really want to try, or even in the winter, it's dark, I don't mind, I'll have a roof over, but I really want to find the place outside of my garden that I can just go sit down, regardless of the weather. I can just go sit there, listen to what's going on instead of like being inside a home with the TV on. I'd love to be outside, just yapping away, listening to nature, feeling the breeze, and, you know, both of those, I guess, are ways of de-stressing myself and winding down as friends, family, or nature. So I think,
and you're going to have them all over. You're going to cook for them. You're big into the kitchen, and that's going to be a real focal point of the home.
Yeah,
well.
I've actually promised too many dinner parties right now.
Can I come?
Yeah, of course you can. I'll go bring a few cameras to the opening as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the way I've actually envisioned the open plan kitchen. So if you imagine the kitchen is at the front of the house, and then the rest of the room spans all the way down to the back door where the lounge area is. So in between the lounge and the kitchen is my dining table. But what I'm actually going to do is where that dining table is, I'm going to pull out a peninsula island. So I'll be there on one side of the island, chopping away, prepping, and then I've got everybody else sitting down on the dinner table, maybe having some nachos, glass of wine if they drink, and I'll be there prepping and cooking in front of them. And then it'll be the case of I put all the food on the counter, everyone takes it off to the table. So it's going to be a very much kind of like homely, sharing, you know, family feel, because I love cooking for people.
Yeah.
When it's time to eat, it's just I sit down, I relax, I look around, I get such joy out of people enjoying my food. And
what's your signature dish?
Jesus, what's my signature dish? I'm very good at making carbonara.
No cream?
That question shouldn't even be asked.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I was just antagonising you. I know there's
and
no
it
cream.
worked. Well done. No, for me it's eggs. I try if I'm really trying to go for it. Sometimes I fail, but I'll try use just egg yolk, bit of pasta water. Guanciale is incredibly important. It's pig's cheek if anyone doesn't know that. It's beautiful. It's a lot or more fat, but you're not eating carbonara to be healthy.
No.
And some really good pasta.
So you mentioned that food sustainability is really important to you, and you hate food waste. And where else in your life are you sustainable? How about when it comes to decorating your home? I know we've talked about the interiors and your kitchen, but what about secondhand furniture and vintage things and antiquing and stuff like that? Yeah,
that I'm unsure but also excited about, because my girlfriend sent me a reel. You can kind of get the drift. She's sending me a lot of stuff. She's kind of helping me design the house. But it was a reel from this designer who does really nice houses over in the States. Like, she says you should go down this 80-20 rule. And again, you know, it's an arbitrary figure, but the statement is try go 80% antique, 20% new. And the reason for that is, one, you're reusing and upcycling, but two, it gives character to the home. It's not sterile, like everything's coming from a plastic box, you know. There's a story to things. So for me, kind of on the story aspect, my granddad made a chair back when my dad was a young lad, and the chair kind of followed them around. My granddad was a priest, so they travelled the country, and that chair followed them around the whole place. and now it's in my living room, and it's made out of solid wood. It's in impeccable condition. So my plan is to just reupholster the cushions, and that'll be something every time I sit down. That'll be my comfy chair. You know, you ask me where I'm going to sit down, that'll be the chair I sit. And every time I sit in it, I'll either remember being up in my granddad's house where he was asleep in it, or at times when my dad was asleep in it. So it'll have great sentimental value to me. And then the other place, I'm looking to use some kind of like upcycled materials, and this is kind of a cool one. Copperfish Lighting down in Wicklow is a light company that make their own lights and bulbs, which is fine, most people do that, but the cool part is they use only salvaged wood.
Wow.
So like they've used wood that was used in like the docks for World War II down in France, like these huge like 60 centimetre by 60 centimetre block of this like wood that was literally underneath the sea for like 30, 40, 50 years. But for me, the RDS stadium that we play in got torn down because they're rebuilding it, and he has wood from the Anglesey stand there. So he's drying that wood out currently, and he's going to, there's a lot of wood, so I don't need that many lights. But he's going to use that wood for me to make me a couple lights in my home.
Oh my God.
Every time I go into my house, I'll see those lights and I'll be reminded that that's the RDS stadium. So,
and that's what makes a house a home, is all those stories, those lights. You'll be able to say, well, this is from the RDS, this is my granddad's chair, and it's going to mean so much more than just going into a shop and saying that. Whereas everything has a thought and has a story and has meaning. Yeah. And it will mean so much then when you come home.
Totally. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it again. I just need to get I need to get going. Like,
how long? So when is it going to start, and how long will it take, and when do you think you'll be back in the house?
Yeah, Christmas time I'd love, because that's my kitchen guy saying if I get my orders in by the 26th of September, I'll have them there. But then I realise I've got to get bathrooms done, I've got to get floors done, I've got to get carpets done, I've got electrician and plumbers. So if it's for me, it's not my main priority at the moment. My main priority is, looking after my own wellness, looking after seeing my family, my job, and my girlfriends. They're my main priorities right now, and the house is just behind those. So it's taking longer than I'd like, but
you'll get there.
I will get there, but I don't want to go just bury my head in the sand and forget about my actual life. And
do you think that this will be your forever home, or is it your dream home, or do you have plans for,
Is it my dream home? No, it's not my dream home. But then again, a dream's only a dream. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's why I'm really trying to make this feel like a lovely home now, because who knows, this could be the home that I stay in forever. It might not be, but I don't want to disrespect it by just creating it as a stepping stone. I want to give it the same love that I'd give if it was my forever home, because at the end of the day, it's going to be me living in it. So I want to make sure that I'm doing this for me, and not for how can I make this house best for selling it into the future. And
that's an amazing attitude to have, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people have that attitude. Some people see, they're like, this is a starter home, or, and they might end up there for their lifetime. So it is good to just put it all into what you have now.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean I'm spending all my money to make this home like the state-of-the-art home, but I'm putting all my love and attention into it, because I don't want to take for granted the fact that I can buy a home and I just chuck whatever in. I want to make sure that I'm giving it the respect it deserves, because at the end of the day, I'm the one who's going to reap the rewards of it. So,
and it is a huge privilege to have. I understand, and
yeah, no, I'm incredibly fortunate to be in a position to own a home.
What's next for you then, Ryan? So you're busy at the moment. What is taking up most of your time?
Training is very busy. I'm heading off to South Africa next week for the first 2 weeks of the season. Yeah, so we're just training hard, and while I'm done at, I start at 7, but I'm done a little bit early. Maybe done 2, 3, 4 o'clock. You're mentally drained after that, because you've just gone so hard. You've done 2 or 3 intense sessions during the day. There's meetings and stuff. So as much as I'm busy, a lot of that busy actually is me giving myself time in the evening to do nothing, maybe go for a walk, because I said my main priorities are my health and my family, friends, and my job. So I still have to prioritize that. And I guess that's called life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not getting paid to do this house, so I'm not checking in at 9 and leaving at 5. I'm doing it in my spare time. But is it stressing me? No, because I've accepted that it is something that's gonna happen. It's gonna take a bit of time. If I stressed over it, like, I'm fortunate I've got a roof over my head. I can cook. I've got my family home to go home to. Got friends. Like, there's I don't have the right to stress over this. Like, I can be frustrated. I can be annoyed. But at the end of the day, like, I own a home in Dublin and I'm renovating it, so it should all be positive.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on Housewarming.
Thank you.
So from homeowner to home builder, I talked to Kieran McCarthy about his own retrofit project, his other work across the country, and got some advice for the many homeowners like Ryan setting out on a new project. Kieran McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us on Housewarming. On this podcast, we have been looking at real Irish homes that are transforming for a greener energy future. And we've interviewed people all over the country, from centuries-old cottages in Sligo to modern semi-Ds in Dublin. But Kieran, you're sort of a bit of an expert on this subject. So tell us who you are and why you're qualified to give us all this brilliant advice.
Hi, Kim. So I'm an engineer and builder in Cork. I run my own building company, KMC Homes, where we design and build homes in Cork. I've renovated countless buildings through my company. I've renovated my own home, and I've gotten all the deep retrofit grants from SEAI. And I have an A1 rated home because I got solar PV on the roof and everything else. And I drive an electric car, so I'm certainly living the brand. And I've taken many homes through the deep retrofit process. And I'm also heading up a new TV show, Deep Retrofitting Homes in Ireland, which will be coming out in kind of late autumn, called Heat My Home. So between an engineering background, being involved in numerous projects, and heading up a new TV show on the subject, that's my deep retrofitting stripes.
Brilliant. So you're retrofitting other people's homes, but you've actually gone through the process yourself. So when you're speaking to your clients, you can actually speak to your own experience. Tell me a little bit about your own retrofit on your home. It's an A1 now, but what was it before?
It was about a D or an E direction. It was a cottage which there was an old lady living in it. There was quite a new oil burner in it, but there was negligible insulation. The windows were old PVC, a mixture of single glazed and double glazed, and no air tightness to speak of. So a very inefficient envelope, albeit a reasonably efficient heating system. And it would have been a grand house in the summer, but in the winter you'd have noticed it, and you'd have seen kind of condensation on the walls and that kind of thing. So whereas we extended the house, we also deep retrofitted it. So we would have put a combination of external insulation and cavity insulation, and even a few places, a bit of dry lining as well, just to kind of deal with some cold bridging in the old house. We would have put an air to water system externally and a heat recovery ventilation system, an awful lot of air tightness work, and solar PV in the end.
Okay, and how is it now that it's A1, super warm and cosy?
It's a vastly different house. Yeah, like when you're dealing with an old house, there's always challenges, because you have the old footprint to deal with, and you have the old fabric to deal with. I mean, you can make huge strides, but you're still dealing with an old house. You have to be sympathetic with the old house, but the living environment is lovely in the house. Yeah.
Going back to square one then, Kieran, if first-time buyers or even second-time buyers are looking for a home, in terms of upgrading that home for energy efficiency, what do people need to look out for, and how to avoid a money pit?
I think the age of the house tells a lot, and even where the house is located. Like, it's generally easier to renovate houses that are in the city, because they'd be connecting to the local city sewerage system and that sort of things, just from a sewer hookup point of view. Albeit you might have clay sewers, you'd have to replace those with PVC sewers. The older the house, the harder it is to renovate, because I mean the most beautiful houses are the old stone cottages, but when you start working with stone, it's tricky. Stone holds a lot of dampness. Stone probably has no damp proof courses or any of that sort of thing. So and stone needs to breathe. So it either needs to breathe on the outside or breathe on the inside, but it needs to breathe. So you have to, it's a tricky design when you're looking at either dry lining it on the inside. Well, you really can only dry line it on the inside. There's nothing you can do on the outside really to insulate it, because again, it needs to breathe. But stone is tricky. I mean, the easiest house to renovate would be like a mid 1970s onwards house, which might have a blockwork cavity. So you have your outer leaf and your inner leaf, and you might have a good sized cavity. You might have 75 to 100 mil of a cavity, which you can pump. That is the most cost effective and simplest house to renovate when it comes to the external wall structure. When you get into insulating the attic, if you have a flat ceiling attic, so a normal triangular type truss or cut roof attic, where you can place 300 to 400 mil of quilt insulation in the attic, that is the easiest way to ventilate an attic. To insulate an attic, when you have kind of pitched ceilings on the first floor, sloped ceilings, that kind of thing, that's a lot trickier, because trying to get insulation into those ceilings and deal with a level of ventilation which you need above the insulation and the cold bridging associated, it gets a lot trickier, particularly things like dormer bungalows and that kind of thing, you know.
And if someone was buying a home, Kieran, would there ever be a home that you would say avoid?
A hard question to answer. I suppose if it was a young couple and they were buying a very old stone building that the roof was falling down, and I knew they had a very limited budget, I would certainly be making them aware of the kind of money they could expect to be paying into the project to stabilise it. Now, if it's a young couple and they have a good budget, or they inherited an old stone building, so a lot of the money they have is going into actually the renovation rather than buying it, then they are beautiful buildings to renovate. And I'm sure Maggie Malloy from Cheap Irish Homes would be promoting me renovating them rather than the other way around. Old stone buildings are tricky, and houses are expensive enough to buy, and building work is expensive nowadays because of the inflation and everything else post the recent wars. So really, it is hard for young people, hard for any people, elderly people, anyone looking to renovate a building. It's tough going because there's a lot of unknowns, and even now that some of the costs are unknown because of inflation, that kind of thing.
And what are the big surprises that maybe a new homeowner would face after they've gotten the keys and they thought that they might have a pretty straightforward home energy upgrade ahead of them, but actually, there's quite a few surprises? What might those surprises look like, Kieran?
Well, I mean, the home energy upgrade is usually reasonably straightforward, because you have to design your insulation for your walls, your insulation for your floor if you're going down that direction, and your insulation for your attic. You have to look at air tightness, you have to look at your heating system, your ventilation system, your windows. That's a lot of the work done. What you'll often find, it's more the ancillary renovation works. Like, you might have bought the house, it might have been built in the 1960s or 1950s, and you mightn't know that there are clay sewers under the house, because they used clay sewers back in those days. There wasn't PVC sewers available. So removing those, which I certainly would advise, and replacing them with PVC can be very expensive and very invasive. And you may not know that, depending on the level of engineering survey you had done when you're buying the building. I suppose occasionally you can see an amount of asbestos in an old building. Now, if it's asbestos slates or asbestos corrugated material on an outhouse or something, as long as you don't move it, it's perfectly fine to leave it in place. It's only when you start moving it, and for God's sake, don't cut it or anything, that's when you get a little bit of airborne asbestos dust, which is very dangerous. So that all has to be done with extreme care. But asbestos, if you didn't know it was there, and I suppose things like subsidence and that sort of things, which generally should be picked up with an engineer's survey. But these are bigger issues, and they don't form a typical deep retrofit, but they kind of come in tandem with it. I know we were looking at a house recently, and while they were doing the dry lining and taking off some of the old plaster, they realised some of the heads of the windows, the beam above the window, which were timber, which wouldn't be unusual, but they were beginning to rot. So to take those out, you have to prop up the masonry above before you take out the old timber beam and put in a concrete beam. So these are things that just come at you when you go at, particularly older buildings. I mean, if you're renovating a house that was built in the 80s, you won't have those issues. But the older you get, the more you get into those older kind of construction types.
Okay, so before you bite the bullet and, agree to purchase a home, you're kind of going to know what the renovation and what the potential home energy upgrade is that you're facing most of the time.
I think you will have a fairly good handle on the home energy upgrade costs. It's more the kind of building renovation works that need, the stabilisation works that need to happen around that, be they structural, or maybe the drains issue that we mentioned with the clay sewers and that kind of thing. Maybe you've an old septic tank that really has gone past its sell-by date. Maybe you've lead pipes from the older style of pipes. Maybe you've rot in in your roof structure, or woodworm, or that kind of thing. So it's more to do with the existing fabric, really, and the existing services of the building.
And what are the biggest challenges homeowners face when they go to undertake a deep retrofit?
I suppose, first of all, you've got to make sure you have the money available. Now, generally, there's a good news story when you start putting all the figures together, because when you look at the SEI grants, which are very generous, they can take 25%, 30%, 40% off your overall figure. So you can find out at the end of the day, it's a much smaller figure than you thought, albeit still a big figure. I suppose in some cases, not all, in some cases you have to move out for a few months because you might have an old building and they might be taking up floors. In other cases, you can actually live in the house while the retrofit work is being done, because it might be a lot less invasive if it's a much newer house. So I suppose you have to look at the monies involved. You have to look at the upheaval, and I wouldn't have thought it's a particularly stressful event once the team are up and running. But like if you're a retiree and you're suddenly having to pack up all your life's belongings, take them out of the house while the house is being renovated, sure, you'll end up throwing a quarter of the stuff back into a skip. So you're having to kind of go back to all your years of stuff you collected down through the years and maybe sorting through all that.
And clearing out the attic?
I'm sure it's a very rewarding experience when it's done. But like I suppose you're kind of saying goodbye to some clutter as well, which you might have sentimental value on, So it really depends on the person, and it depends on the house and, what stage they're at,
And Kieran, you've obviously been working with clients over the past 10, 20 years. How have attitudes changed to home energy upgrades, say, in the past decade? Are people more open to it? Is it something that is top of mind at the moment compared to a few years ago?
Particularly in the last few years, I think post the recent wars in Ukraine, particularly I suppose the war in Ukraine, when you had spikes in electricity and gas and oil and all that sort of things, people became much more conscious of their energy bills and much more conscious of their energy usage. And then you start looking at the efficiency of your home, and you suddenly realize that we're paying a fortune of electricity for our heating, or maybe gas for our heating or whatever. And of course, finally, solar photovoltaic systems have there was a time when they were improving dramatically year on year. They're beginning to level out. So that kind of happened at a good time, because as people were getting fearful of spiraling energy prices, photovoltaic came to the fore and the technology has started to level off. So people were beginning to invest in that. So suddenly you had a huge splurge on photovoltaic, which is electricity generating solar panels throughout the country, and I'm guessing throughout Europe as well. There's been a massive uptake of those systems. And now if you drive around anywhere, you can see people fitting solar panels, you can see the vans on the road. So certainly in the last few years, there's been a massive increase.
And do you think the finances are the main driver, or do you think people's climate awareness and consciousness about being sustainable is also driving the numbers up?
I think there's a lot of things. I mean, like, younger individuals will feel they need to be doing their bit for the environment just as a given. And they'll be going, look, sure, if I'm buying this house to renovate it, I'm going to be putting in the new kitchen. I might do a little extension. I'm looking at a 10, 15-year horizon in this house, and sure, geez, I have to do the deep retrofit and get my air to water unit and get my ventilation unit, my external insulation and the new windows and the whole lot. It kind of comes as a package pretty much now, where 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. People would often get an extension, get the nice open plan kitchen and kind of leave it at that. And then 5 years later, they might go off and get dry lining in some of the bedrooms upstairs. And so they didn't do it holistically all in one package, whereas now people do tend to. I suppose people can probably afford it a little bit more as well, just the way the economy went and everything else. But so people are doing it all in one now, as opposed to piecemeal in the past. And you'll find retirees then are kind of going, I might want my grandchildren to call over, and I don't want them to think that I'm kind of old fashioned with my leaky windows and the damp on the wall and kind of. So they want to feel a bit more modern, a bit younger. And we've seen elderly couples who've renovated a house or built a new house, and they're new people. I mean, it gives them a real new lease of life, and they feel they're back in touch, and they've remodernized their whole setup, and they feel much better about it.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the time beforehand, when people are living in say a D or an E rated house, the difference when you go back to them and they've had it upgraded and they're now a B or an A, and they're saying it's like a different way of life. They're living differently. The comfort levels, and they don't have to think of putting heating on before they come home, and they don't have to wear those extra layers. So it does make an absolutely huge difference. And obviously we've spoken to people who've told us on this podcast what difference it's making, which is absolutely amazing. And Kieran, what are the main misconceptions that people have before undergoing a home energy upgrade? Some
people feel that when a house is going to be airtight, they'll be barely able to breathe in the house. It's going to be airtight, and they think of just like being underwater or something. They're going to run out of oxygen. Whereas airtightness really is to stop uncontrolled leakage of warm air in the winter. That's really what you're looking to do. You're to get rid of all the drafts. Now, when the more airtight you make a house, obviously then you get to a stage where, because there's no draft, there's no real passive background ventilation if you don't have vents in the walls. So after a while, you will need to input fresh air through a mechanical ventilation system. Once you get up to a fairly good level of airtightness, and the higher level of airtightness, the more you'll need a ventilation system and the more elaborate the ventilation system. So, but on the other side, I often get asked, but can I open the windows in the summer? 100%. I mean, ventilation units don't really do much in the summer. They tip along. If they're heat recovery, they're not really recovering any heat because there isn't much to recover. The indoor temperature and the outdoor temperature are more or less the same. But 100%, you will be opening up your windows or sliding doors or front door. It doesn't really come into play a huge amount in the summer. It's in the winter when you've spent a little bit of money with your very efficient heating system, heating up the air inside your house in the winter, and your insulation is keeping that air warm because you're not cold bridging to the cold outside, then you want to keep that air warm. You don't want to lose it through draft. So your air tightness is doing all its work. Albeit, because of the level of air tightness inside, you need to bring a bit of fresh air in the whole time, just keep the air quality good, which is what your ventilation system is doing. So that's one big misconception. Some people think, but if I have all this insulation, my house is going to be roasting in the summer. But insulation is a kind of a two-way gate, because it stops excessive heat coming from the outside in the summer, and it stops excessive heat loss from the inside out in the winter. So it should actually help you in both seasons. And I suppose the other aspect is people think that if they have an older house, sure, I'll have to hack up all my floors to get all my floor insulation and everything else in. That isn't always the case. Like if you've well-insulated walls and a well-insulated roof or attic, you can have enough compensation there that you don't necessarily have to take up all the floors, depending on the house now and depending on the BR assessment and all that.
Okay, and I know you mentioned people thinking it might be too warm in the summer. We have had a particularly warm summer. I know we're coming into autumn now, but people are concerned, I suppose, as well, buying a new A-rated home. Heat rises, they're worried that, up the top of the attic, they'll be just sweltering at night. What would you say to people who have those worries about being in an A-rated home in the warmer months?
Yeah, and again, I had this conversation with a client this morning. You really need to think. Okay, so you have a very efficient envelope in a brand new aerated house. So you don't want to be over inputting too much heat into that house because it won't naturally permeate out because it's so well insulated. So you really have to look at where is the heat coming from. The heat is coming in that case probably from the ground floor. I suppose now that people have bought into the vision of having the open plan kitchen, dining, living with lovely loads of glass and sliding doors facing south in an ideal world, you do have the difficulty that you get a lot of, whereas you get lovely light from the south, you get all the sun's strongest rays and heat and all that from the south, your solar gain. So triple glazed windows will certainly help with that. You can get reflective glass. There are various films you can apply to the glass that help reflect some of that solar gain. And one of the biggest elements that I have it in my own house, and I found it really good, is kind of canopies, or what they call brise-soleils, over your window heads for the big glazing, primarily on the ground floor. So you're reducing all that solar gain. That's really what's heating. That's what's overheating your house. It isn't like the sun shining on a wall, down the concrete wall down the side of your house. It's the sun shining through your glass on a south-facing elevation. And of course, we have much more of that glass now. So triple glazing is very important. Canopies, if you can afford them, or if you're designing an extension, or if you're designing a new house, canopies over the heads of those windows makes a huge difference.
So you don't think Ireland is going the way of air conditioning in residential homes?
I've heard people talking about it. I've seen two people do it, but I haven't seen that need myself in any house that we've built.
Yeah, because a fan is just as good at night.
Well, there is that. I mean, look, every house gets warm. If you don't have air conditioning, you can only be as cool as the air is outside, really, when you open windows. Air, like if you close windows but on air conditioning, yeah, you can cool the house. But I mean, in the absence of that, you are down to, if it's 15 degrees outside on a warm night, you're going to be 15 degrees on the inside, and that'll be probably a bit warmer than you'd like. But I think air conditioning in this country, there's so many days that it won't be on. It's a huge expense as well. I know it's not cheap at all.
We don't want to waste energy around here.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So that's it for this week's episode of Housewarming. So much great advice from Kieran, and we're actually going to hear a little more from him later in the series, so do stay tuned. We will be back next week with a brand new episode, and if you'd like to find out more about any of the grants or schemes mentioned in this episode, you can head to the SEII website, and there are links in the show notes. And finally, we also have a special bonus episode on the feed all about the government-backed home energy upgrade loans. So check that out if you're getting serious about your renovation plans.